Let's war rolling Atlas Thug. We here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast. We breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up. We won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thug. We're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Draw open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar openers podcast, where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thug, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas Thug, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast where the lies will decrease.
All right. I always forget to unmute my mic, man. It's a daily thing for me. What's up, everybody? All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Jar Openers Podcast, episode 22. Tonight we're going to get into some of the Daniel Penny updates and also what's going on with Pete Hegseth. That's two of the main things that we've been a couple of the things that we've been covering lately. And then, of course, we have updates in the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO. A couple updates in that one. Donald Trump is going to France. And, you know, if you're like me, I'm not a big fan of him leaving the state and the safety and security of his own home right now. But we'll get more into that. And then I'm Tyler, the host of America First TV. You can find me on X. I'm Worrell. Guys, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to our channels, all that good stuff. You know how it goes. Atlas, you want to let people know who you are?
Yeah, I am Atlas Thug, the resident Christian nationalist here. You can find me on my own show, Offensively Accurate, and I'm on YouTube at Atlas Thug as well. I don't want to take too much time. We have a guest in here today. We have Native Patriot. So go ahead and tell us about yourself, brother.
I'm the Native Patriot. I'm the co-creator of the Patriots Prayer Network. It's basically a network of patriotic podcasters that have been joining together to speak the truth and kind of fight back against the narratives that we've been fed for the past couple of years. And I mean, we're just everyday Americans who have been fed up with it. And you can find us on Rumble, the Patriots Prayer, also on X. You can find me at Law Native Patriot. You can see down below. So, but basically, my journey started out a couple years ago, and I just started speaking out against the tyrannical nature of our society, and I didn't like it, and I wanted to do everything I could to make this world a better place.
Nice. That's kind of pretty much what we're trying to do too. So it's nice to have you on here. It's going to be a fun little conversation. I guess we'll just go ahead and get started with this whole Daniel Penny update. Bring over this article here. This one's from Just the News. Jurors in the Daniel Penny case are deadlocked twice. The judge dismisses the manslaughter charge, and so we have a quote. We, the jury, request instructions from Judge Wiley. At this time, we are unable to come to a unanimous vote on count one. It says court one. On count one, manslaughter in the second degree. Then they read a note that the jurors reportedly sent to the court around, on a note that they sent around 11 a.m. And so, let's see here. The judge in the Daniel Penny chokehold oh my God, I can't read. So the judge in the Daniel Penny chokehold trial granted a motion to dismiss a manslaughter charge after the jury said twice on Friday they cannot agree on the charge. Penny, a 26-year-old Marine veteran, has been accused of fatally choking a mentally ill homeless man who was threatened to kill riders on the subway car in New York City. Of course, the one of the only states where they, well, I guess there's more than one, but, you know, they hate guns. I feel like if individuals were able to carry as freely as they can in some of these other states, it might not have been such an issue. But anyways, Friday marked the 4th day of jury deliberations, and then I just read that in the top there, the quote from the jury. They can't find him. They can't get a unanimous vote, so that means that like one dude, there might just be one person in there that's holding up the whole thing. But I've seen some perspective that this is a good thing, some perspective that this is a bad thing, that it kind of is getting special, I don't know what you call it, special attention, where normally the protocol is if you can't find a person jury on the first charge, they don't default to the second charge. The second charge actually goes away. So we're seeing kind of a special scenario over here, as New York is doing everything that they can, in my opinion, to try to make sure that Mr. Penny sees the inside of a jail cell for quite a long time, which is pretty unfortunate. It's one of those things.
It seems like it should have been a mistrial as well, but now it feels like they're kind of trying to set a precedent where they overcharge as much as they can, if they can't get that, they'll just drop the prosecution and then they'll move on to the next one, instead of having it go through and then it coming out on the other side, a mistrial with prejudice, let's say, and where they wouldn't be able to recharge him. Instead of that happening, now they're just going to continue down the line and say, okay, they didn't come to a conclusion twice, so we will scratch that one and just move on and put our full attention onto the next one. So this kinds of sets a precedent for the prosecutions to overcharge as much as they possibly can, and if they don't get that unanimous decision, then this will just be the tactic from now on how they move down the line, as opposed to just going through the what is supposed to be the process of it being a mistrial.
Right.
Yeah, where it's like casting the biggest net they possibly can. You know, and it's such like the optics on it are so bad. And you know, we had a story earlier, just talking about how, you know, there's like Mayor Adams, he's saying that he's want to be Republican again. So you have people who are at least being vocally like dissenting to what's going on here, what we're seeing. I think the overall take is that this whole thing is just a joke. It's a shame the way it's being done. He's kind of being on trial for what I would consider just being a patriot, being a white American, you know, former military as well. You know, Jordan Neely, somebody who was like 42 times he was arrested previously to this. So
And
they
had
kind
a
of like
current
downplay.
warrant out for his arrest.
Yeah, and you get all these kind of think pieces that are like, you know, Jordan Neely, I believe. He was such a good person. All he was doing was dancing on the subway, and you get it, you know, his father came out, I believe, for the first time in Lord knows how long, coming out and saying like, oh, my son this, my son that, when he wasn't involved. The whole thing is one large statement on society as a whole. Like, this is a big hit on culture, right? You know, we get somebody who gets charged like this when they try to stand up for themselves. This is the whole reason why we have stories similar to I believe it's also in New York, where a woman was assaulted and no one stepped in. I mean, she was being violently sexually assaulted on
New
a train.
Jersey.
Yeah, in Jersey. And you know, it kind of sets a precedent for people, for husbands, fathers who are like, why would I do something like this? I'm going to leave my own family behind if I go step out of line and try to like defend or do the right thing. And it's just overall bad.
Yeah, it's a deterrent from allowing the good guys to to act. Really, it's pretty crazy. But to your point there about where you mentioned that his dad kind of came out of the woodworks, from what I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but apparently his dad hasn't been like super active in his life, and now he's actually bringing some type of lawsuit. He's trying to sue and get some money out of this whole scenario as well. I wish I would have saved that. Actually, I saw that yesterday.
Yeah, and I mean, it's probably best not to bring a bunch of attention to that guy, because obviously he's a POS who wasn't in his son's life, and his son was a low life who was lost in drugs. And I mean, 42 arrests is no joke. And also having a warrant out to be arrested again, assaulting people, saying that you're ready to die, that you will kill people if they don't give you a soda. And this wasn't a case of vigilantism where Daniel Penny was going out in a Batman mask trying to stop the bad guys. No, Daniel Penny was minding his own business on a train. He saw a threat, he neutralized it, and that was it. This is the masculinity that our society has deemed toxic. And unfortunately, it should be normal in society for men to be able to step up, capable, competent men to be able to step up and protect not just the women and children around, but also the other men who aren't as capable or as competent. Clearly, there were enough people on that train to where one guy shouldn't be able to overtake the entire thing. That's why 3 people helped take Jordan Neely down and hold him down because he was on drugs. Although we're not even allowed to see the toxicology report, but he was on drugs. And Daniel Penny wasn't doing anything overtly aggressive to the point where he was obviously trying to create harm. He was just trying to neutralize the situation. And with Jordan Neely passing away, to me, it feels more like karma than anything, because it's obvious if you watch the tape that the aggression was coming from Jordan Neely, not Daniel Penny.
Well, I think what's wild, even back up what you're saying, it was the cops didn't even perform mouth-to-mouth CPR on Jordan Neely. I think one of like the leading officers there said like he feared that because of how dirty Jordan Neely was, he even presented a risk, right? Of like, this guy is clearly mentally ill. He has like all the qualities that are there. And he didn't want to risk his officers getting things like hepatitis and such as well. Then the video was released that he was still breathing afterwards, well after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
And I completely agree with your masculinity take there too. This is like another, shot heard around the world in regards to like what's been really a really bad kind of toxic environment to be in, which is men trying to be men in the current state of what our social environment is.
Yeah.
And I just think, if this trial plays out the way I fear it's going to play out with this deadlock jury, and they find some way to get him on some charge, I think that does, in most men's mind, they're just going to say like, why bother? Why would I go run the risk of being the next Daniel Penny?
Yeah, definitely. And then, well, it makes me think too. I mean, not to like try to counter you, but I'm just saying like additionally, it prevents the natural action of a man to want to stop a bad guy doing something in the process. But the fact that New York has basically disarmed their citizens, it would prevent even a caring woman from being able to, correct the situation. You know what I'm saying? Because, ultimately our Second Amendment is the ultimate equalizer. And so with them basically de-arming the citizens, it forces this type of scenario where a person has to go almost hand-to-hand combat, which with a criminal on drugs, maybe even facing some type of psychological issues or both or whatever. And we've seen scenarios in the past where people that are on drugs don't even get taken down when they get shot. And so it just makes the puts the public people, the citizens, in danger even that much more so.
Well, one take I heard that kind of made me really think about it was, say Daniel Penny wasn't white, right? Say it was an individual, it was a scuffle between 2 black men. Some guy would saying like this would be on World Star, it'd be have an entirely different kind of optic to it, the way it's being played out. So I think there's multiple layers to this of like why there is such an intent on getting him charged. There's been a lot more that's come out of the prosecutor who's been pressing on him. I think her rhetoric specifically in the trial and even beforehand was like white man, like she used that language multiple times, right? And she's kind of trying to play up to this the race level of this in the audience. And there was a speech earlier, and I think I put it in the outline, hopefully I did, of a video of a female also talking about how like this is like picture book of like what we saw during the Jim Crow era, talking about how the jury, people who are in the jury, like they're the people who lived through this and they're trying to do it again. And it's all kind of playing on these racial tensions that exist. And that's like where the main kind of narrative goes when people see this from the left.
That's why BLM has come out of the woodwork after not doing anything for years, after taking all of the money that they stole from the George Floyd debacle and buying their mansions in LA and all their fancy cars and not doing a damn thing for the Black Americans throughout the country. They don't speak up about the violence in the cities, in the inner cities. They haven't started any programs to sponsor kids that are well gifted in those environments to get out of the hood or get out of the cities or whatever environment's holding them down. They haven't done any of that. No, they've been waiting until another black man can be perceived or twisted in a way that was killed by a white man to where they could go and get more money. That's the only thing that they're after. It is so disgusting to me how they will come out and they will act like victims and say, oh, now, we have more evidence of all the racism in America, so please give us more money so we can buy more mansions, more luxury cars, go to more parties, and not do anything to actually help Black Americans. It's disgusting.
Yeah, it's predatory. It's
Exactly right.
it's a bully tactic, to fearmonger. A lot of police essentially, they think twice, and now the citizens have to think twice. It's weird. I was thinking about this earlier today. And this does kind of remind me, it's reminiscent. I get it's not exactly the same, but of the Derek Chauvin case when they were trying to go after him, and they really wouldn't like confirm the toxicology of George Floyd, and I don't know. It's just you just feel the difference. And then there was the other guy who was he was a black guy, and he was fighting with his girlfriend or his baby's mom or something like that. And then he ran to the car and went for the knife. Yeah, thank you, Jacob Black. Ran for the knife, and then the police had to do what they had to do. And it's just, BLM, the folks that tend to follow their lead. It's weird, like they just, I don't know. It's very cultish. I always call it, it's like my default, but it's very cultish. Like,
well, I think you're right with that, with it being a default. How long ago was it when LeBron James doxed a police officer in a situation where the police officer was
when he said "you're next"?
Yeah, I think it's
right.
I can't remember. It was a girl, I believe. She was like wielding a knife. I can't remember the exact details on that. But I don't even think it's like you need BLM at this point. I think it's done its damage, right? This is kind of like seeped into a cultural level where they're kind of raised like, and how often do you see it too, where, it'll say, black men will be like, well, I have to give my children the talk. And their talk is referring to about like how you're supposed to be around cops, as if like every other race in the country doesn't give their same talk, as long as fathers are in the home.
Right.
And so there's certain kinds of, how deep does it go? And so how hard is it to actually combat against? And the reason why I think you can have all these headlines about BLM, stealing people's money, buying homes, and being socialists, and it just doesn't matter, is because they don't need the BLM anymore. It's kind of like an ingrained kind of thought process in that community now.
Yeah. 100%. It's I mean, almost BLM is a little bit detriment to it. They definitely don't need them. That's for sure. Like I could see people taking that with a grain of salt, essentially at some points, if BLM is saying something, but then they just look at the story themselves, and the echo chambers and all that will be enough to cause another Summer of Love type of event.
And then we'll get another Kyle Rittenhouse. That's the thing, is that there will be more patriots to step up, and there will be more men that push back against it. And this time, I believe that there wouldn't be just one Kyle Rittenhouse, that hopefully there would be hundreds. And hopefully there would be a big push to not allow this kind of shit to happen. Because, am I allowed to curse on here?
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. Don't worry.
Try to keep
don't worry about
it mild.
Yeah, no, don't worry about it at all, really. The
fine.
YouTube rules, you just don't say fuck within the first like 2 minutes or whatever, and we're way beyond that. So
all right, perfect. Well, back in 2020, when the radical Antifa members took over 6 blocks of Seattle, they named it Chaz, which was the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone, which they changed to CHOP, which was the Capitol Hill Occupied Protest, because they were having some issues with being called or labeled domestic terrorists with having it being an autonomous zone. So they changed it to occupied protest, so that way they could make it sound so the media would have their back, even though there were many rapes and executions and murders in that 6-block area. I remember there were 2 young black kids. It was like a 15-year-old and a 17-year-old who had stolen a vehicle, and they went to the Chaz Chop area to go hide to
Yeah.
run from the cops. And the security at the Chaz Chop area thought that they were white supremacists and ended up open firing on them, shooting over 300 rounds into the vehicle. And one of the videos I remember seeing specifically that kind of stuck in my mind was when when one of the guys opened the door and one of the kids was still alive, and he literally just said, "Oh, you're still alive." Like they don't value life in the same way. It's they're going to do whatever they want to do. Our media didn't take it seriously. Our governor didn't take it seriously. We didn't send in the National Guard. There are plenty of rapes and murders that went unsolved there. And not only that, the business owners who were being harassed constantly, I believe they got paid out eventually, but there's no reason why they should have to go through that. And with a trial like Daniel Penny is going to, if he gets persecuted and put in prison for this, then that just sets the precedent that anybody that steps up against a radical group like Antifa or BLM, when they take over 6 city blocks and have armed guards, if you step up to them, then not only will you have the Antifa BLM radical domestic terrorists after you, but the state is also going to come after you, which is
Yeah.
not a good, it's not how our liberty and justice is supposed to work here in America. That's not what the founding fathers intended in any way, shape, or form.
Well, on
100%.
your point there too with Trump, like, people were kind of begging and like hoping like Trump, like, please send in the National Guard, like, while this is
Right.
going on. And I think this kind of speaks to like a higher element here where that's been one of his kind of defaults of wanting the optics to be always in his favor and like unwilling to kind of like flex the authority when it's actually like desperately needed. And that story was just, it was awful. I believe it was like what, 2 16-year-olds or like a 16-year-old and like a 12-year-old, like 2 really young kids who ended up getting riddled with bullet holes when they went in that area. And
I believe
you
it
look
was
at the,
15 and 17, but they were both underage, which is
yeah,
incredibly sad. There were 2 black kids too, but BLM didn't say a damn thing about that.
No,
right.
the ideology comes first. Really, it's the color of your skin is just their virtue signal, I guess. But I
Yep,
was gonna
they love
say,
having a
too,
construction.
to that point where Trump refrained from sending in the National Guard to take that over. That's contradictory to all the name calling that they've tried to put on Trump, where they call him this, he's going to be a dictator from day one, and he's going to be this fascist and whatever. But like, he actually showed restraint from sending in the National Guard. He allowed the state to function on its own behalf, which is pretty much how it's supposed to be. It's just funny because I like to call this contradiction out, because the left wants to try to, call Trump a dictator, but then even the people on the left will blame him for not sitting in the National Guard. And it's like, well, wait a minute. So you want a dictator? You really want a king? You want a king to federally mandate laws to all the states, and all the states have to behave in the same way under the same laws. And you want those laws to be dictated by your ideology. And it's I don't know. I think it's just a funny hypocrisy where they constantly are accusing him of this, but then they go and they pardon. It's a common occurrence amongst the Democratic Party that with the hypocrisy, the things they condemn versus the things that they actually approve. They want to act like they're going to protect a life when it comes to like George Floyd or something like that. But then when it comes to a baby in the womb, that's a whole another story.
Right. Well, they see Christianity as being like one of the most radical things in this country.
Yeah.
Anything that kind of speaks to Christianity values or even moving even further rightwards towards that, it's an automatic no-go. And speaking of hypocrisy, when the radical groups, what was it? Tim Pool tried to make this thing a thing. It was like May 29th when they forced President Trump in the bunker.
Oh yeah.
Which is like, set DC on fire. You could see those
Set fire
pictures of
to
just
St.
fires
John's
everywhere.
Cathedral. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like not talked about whatsoever. It's that same
No.
kind of hypocrisy of like, we're allowed to do it, but like, don't you ever dare.
Right. Well, they always talk about January 6th and the cops that were injured that day, which the reality is nobody died that day besides oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank now.
Ashley Babbitt.
Trump's, yeah, thank you. Goodness, I can't believe I forgot her name. Ashley Babbitt. But meanwhile, to your point there, Atlas, that was it 529 or 530? They set fires to St. John's Cathedral. They fought with Capitol Police and federal I don't know if it was Capitol Police and then Secret Service, and sending like 60 to 80 people to the hospital that night.
112 casualties, I believe, and
was it?
casualties using it as in people were injured, as in police were injured. So
Okay. So yeah, once again, like you're saying, it's the hypocrisy, the things they want to lift up and make big deals out of, but then they give the passes to like these other instances where I can tell you that I mean, we can see it, we saw it from all the video and everything. There wasn't one fire set on January 6th, but DC was a burning hellhole on that night when they forced Trump to go down into the bunker. And then the
there was
main
over
story that
100
came
days
out
of
of that,
riots.
yeah, and then the main story that came out of that was Trump. They were saying tear gassed. Trump tear gassed a peaceful crowd so that he could take a picture with the Bible or whatever. That was the main story that came out of that whole event. It was they had a boogeyman Trump. It's like, come on.
Yeah, well, there's nowhere else to go after you go to Hitler, right? Worse than Hitler. It's like you're in no man's land now. There's nowhere else you can drive this kind of sentiment. It's just unfortunate though too, because I kind of say this all the time. You can't even be mad at the people who are kind of like dumb or don't pay attention, because they've become so used to just listening to the news, once a day or whatever. It's more so like the media that propagates all of this, that carries like the water for them, that ensures they lie in the most obfuscatory ways, that people just have no idea what's going on. They can't tell what the truth is. And then that's why when you bring something up, it kind of like breaks the reality. They're like, what are you talking about? They like would have never heard of May 29th. They're like, that's not even a thing that exists in their brain. And it's
Right.
because the media conglomerates and the powers that be just over and over and over bang the drum for the same kind of rhetoric, and people just get used to it. They get programmed.
The difficult part about that is, yeah, maybe you shouldn't be mad at the ones being led astray, but they're also the ones who are going to be willfully cheering when you get burned at the stake.
Right.
Yeah. And like to your point, I like to say we need to leave a path to redemption for these folks. But at the same time, I'm to the point where it's just like I was telling people, I was advocating leading up into the week before Thanksgiving that, show up in your MAGA gear, wear your American flag, show your America first pride. And if, one of your woke relatives wants to say something, just correct their lies with truth. It's an opportunity where we can actually teach people face to face. And it's funny because I was really looking forward to reacting to some videos of freak out videos of families fighting and stuff like that. And turns out like the majority of the reports were that Thanksgivings were pretty peaceful. Thanksgivings went pretty smooth sailing for a lot of people, the dinners and stuff. So I don't know, that kind of speaks to the mandate that the American people have sent to Donald Trump, that we're tired of the corruption, and the folks that didn't show up, the woke lefties or whatever that didn't show up. I think they're understanding that they're maybe now on the wrong side of history, to use one of the Democrat terms against them. But
Yeah. Well, it's like the Overton window thing people bring up all the time, right? It's like, you might not agree with the right wing, but you see the people who you used to agree with a couple of years ago are like, they're insane. Like that's absurd. And like that's the reason why we have like RFK and Tulsi Gabbard being put on the Trump administration, is because so many people are like, I can't go along with this. Like, I may not agree with Trump on a bunch of different policy things, but dude, the other people are like, they're off the rockers and like, and downright evil, if I was to give it a definition. And it's just like, it can't be synonymous like this, and I think that's why you get tensions the way they are too. Because we're getting to get to the point where the right looks at them as like they're being evil, and then the left looks at the right as if we're being evil. And so there's really like only a few places you can go from here. And it's really hard.
The difference
to
is that
de-escalate.
they are actually doing evil things, and
Right.
they're projecting in a particular way. And since they have control of a lot of the media, at least the legacy media, they are able to project that onto the right wingers in a powerful way. I really liked what he said as far as that comment down below. The assumption of innocence is long gone, and if it isn't reestablished across the board, it will never come back. And
Yeah.
how do you propose that we would accomplish that? How do we get that mindset back? Because it's already close to being gone.
Yeah, it's a difficult question. I mean, I think it's probably got one way, and this isn't the only way, I guess, but it's on people to pay attention to their smaller elections. People like to show up in droves for a presidential election, but there's pretty much every year, at least around here, I go over and I have to vote on a judge or a sheriff or a councilman or something like that. There's some type of small election, and so something. If we learned anything during the pandemic, local government is what affects your lives most directly. So we have the right to elect and remove these judges via elections, and it's important for us to actually know who we're voting for and actually go and show up, because the tertiary, the side elections, they're determined by fewer numbers, right? And that's one way. We need to identify who these people are, and vote them out and vote in good people. That'd be one way to kind of fix the law side of it, the judges and things like that. As far as the public, like the public judgment, I don't know. It seems like everybody nowadays is guilty till proven innocent in the public's
Well,
eye.
I think you're doing it right now. I think that speaking out and beginning to become the media, as opposed to allowing the legacy media to run and control all of the information that goes into our lives, because in all reality, millennials, Gen Z, they're all going to be watching podcasts, and the legacy media is dying, if not dead already.
Right.
The stake in the heart of the legacy media is going to be when RFK makes it illegal for these pharmaceutical companies to advertise like they do now. Once that becomes illegal, all of the mainstream media dies, including Fox, and good riddance to all of them, because a platform built on being funded by one of the most evil corporations in the entire history of mankind. Yeah, bye. See you later. And I'll gladly step into that role if need be. I mean, this is one of the main reasons why I started speaking out, and why I encourage as many people as possible to do the same. And so when I see, guys like you speaking out and actually countering the narrative, I mean, this is how we change it. This is how we're going to be able to take the culture back, is by participating in it. Yes, you should participate in your elections as well, your local elections. Also, that's one more reason why Trump isn't a tyrant, is because during the during the government lockdowns and everything, he actually gave power back to the states and didn't overrule everybody the entire time. So that was just another way that he's not a dictator as they claim. So, but yeah, the way that we do it, the way that we get the assumption of innocence back, is by being able to take back the narrative from the paid for legacy media that has that bought and paid for narrative that they are putting out to the masses.
Well, even to add to that, I think that they said with the upcoming press secretary, they're going to allow alternate media slots for people to be there instead of just like the Fox News and legacy media people, whether it's like a Tim Pool or a Benny Johnson or somebody like that. And I think kind of given those kind of slots, I even said this during the like the RNC, these people should be like allowed like the booths. Why does Fox News get a booth? Why does MSNBC get a booth? They're the same people that will lie about you 10 seconds later about what you just said on stage. And this to go along with what Sock's saying there too, the average age is like 70 years old, 70, 71.
Oh, it's insane.
So there's a huge kind of age gap. And so it's unfortunate, but as the older generations, are loose in their mortal coil, as Tim always likes to say, we're going to see a lot more changes. I do kind of have a cynical take with that though as well, because we see people like Destiny, David Pakman. There are other kind of leftists that are prominent as well. And if anything, they're a bit more radical than what we see even on the mainstream media. So maybe that causes even a further divide where people kind of get their news in podcasts. But I think you're right, where alternate media will take reign.
Right. And I think that as far as like the David Pakman Destiny thing, they do appeal to the younger generations, I think, more so than, of course, the older demographic. And I think that's partially because the younger generations are yet to become, families, have families of their own. And that's part of the oppression that we've seen during the Joe Biden campaign, is they made it really hard for young people to start a family, to buy a home, to break out of the renting realm. And that's for the ones that are trying, right? The ones that aren't even trying, they're still living on, in their parents' basement, so to speak. And they don't even know what it's like to live life. And I feel like it's an indirect maybe attack on the youth of by the Democratic Party, essentially by the deep state, we'll even say, to prevent folks from caring. Because the saying goes that you care more about politics the older you get, the wiser you get, the more skin you have in the game as a homeowner, as a parent, as a guardian or a spouse. And when they can push people back into their 30s or their 40s before they're able to have kids or buy a house or anything like that, I think it's one of those things where like a Destiny or a David Pac-Man could actually influence those folks longer. But if we can encourage people to have families, we can encourage people to actually have their kids, make the surrounding environment good enough to where, like Trump had it, interest rates were so low. I'm kicking myself every day for not refinancing my house when the interest rate was like 1% or whatever. But we get low
I got mine
interest.
down to 3, so
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's
That's
fire
awesome.
compared to what I saw.
But if we could if we have an environment like that, it's going to promote people to actually pull the plug and get married and do the things like that. And I have a daughter that's in that age that's considering. She just got engaged, and so she's been stuck in the trap of not only having to rent, but having to have some type of roommate to split the rent with her. And that's just an obstacle in itself, especially if you're trying to eventually get married and buy a house. And I feel like there's kind of an order to that. I feel like most people want to be a homeowner before they start the family, be more secure with what their future is going to look like, and not just be dependent on some type of homeowner, their landlord. I mean, but
They bought the Kool-Aid with that though too. It's too expensive to have a baby. You need to have this before you have a child. You need to have this before you have a child, and they kind of like set that kind of materialistic sentiment in,
right.
where
And
you need to have
that's
all
the
these
craziest
things.
thing to me is believing that I have a family member who's got a couple kids, and they spoil the absolute shit out of them. And I mean, like, they
Good.
got their well, I don't really agree with it as much because they like I remember going over there for a Christmas, and just the kids had like 68 presents between the three of them. I was
oh
like,
man,
that's like way too much. That's way
Yeah.
too much.
Okay.
When my first son, he's 11 now, but when he was a baby, he my family member all got him toys, and so he had a ton to play with. His favorite toy that he played with for like 2 years, it was an empty water bottle. So because it would crinkle, and he
yeah,
could throw it and it wouldn't hurt anything. And
yeah,
so that was one of his favorite toys. And I was like, we don't need all of these super fancy crazy things, and
hmm
like the cost of children go down as you realize that a lot of this stuff is completely unnecessary, and you don't have to do it. You don't have to, like, I was raised in an incredibly, I mean, up until I was 5 years old, we were like poor, like really poor folks, right? And
Yeah.
I didn't know the difference. My mother was I mean, she was an amazing woman, and she made the house feel like a home, even when we didn't have any money. I mean, we had this a school bring out presents for us one time because we didn't have any presents under the Christmas tree, and the school would, like, we were one of those people that got donated to, and like, I don't even remember that, but I do remember like enjoying my time growing up for the most part, and
yeah,
it's like you don't have to have a ton of money. They don't have to be enrolled in all of these extra programs, and it's not the way it's supposed to be. And
Right.
they program people to believe that your life must be completely set up before you even think about having children. And it's like, No, it shouldn't be. You shouldn't have to do that. You don't have to spoil your kids to the point where they're constantly entertained, where they have a million different toys, an iPad. You're going on
Yeah.
vacations 3 times a year.
Yeah.
That's not necessary. My kids, when I go on vacation, I don't take my kids. I mean,
Yeah.
we'll go like to parks or hiking or stuff like that. But like when it's vacation time, it's me and my wife. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm not taking the kids to Disneyland or anything like that because
Right.
I don't think that that's not an important part of their development
Yeah.
in my eyes.
No,
No, I
hear
agree.
I hear you. Well, and just to kind of round out my thought there, was I think that the more people grow up, the faster they grow up, the more or the less they'll take those guys like Destiny and David Pac-Man seriously. So um they'll be like, the earlier they'll realize that this dude's full of shit, and then they'll turn it off, but they'll stay on the alternate media train essentially, and then they can find guys like us or guys that are doing a better job than us. I don't care. But
You brought up a good point there, and you kind of sparked an idea. There's a reason that preachers are supposed to have their lives in order to speak to other people. Now, when you
Mhm.
see someone like Destiny, who uh, is gay or bi, he allowed his wife to get, you know,
yeah,
taken by another man and willingly, and
yeah,
now I believe they're separated now, but
Yep.
his life is complete chaos. There's not many good things going on for him apart from the fact that a bunch of people give him money for his dumb political opinions. But other than that, his life is complete chaos. I don't envy that man at all. I don't make I hardly make maybe a tenth or a hundredth of his salary. I don't know how much money he makes. But I
Yeah, no
bring
idea.
in a little over 100 grand a year, and that is enough to pay for 2 kids and a wife to be a stay-at-home wife. Bought a house, and we paid for our vehicle, so we don't have any car payments or anything like that. So we keep our bills as low as possible, but like we're not rolling in the dough, man. And
right,
Right.
there's no envy from my side because I understand that my priorities have been to get my life in order and then lead by example. And once
yeah,
people start to realize that the people you look up to should be people that are setting an example instead of just preaching about it, because that's what Destiny is, right? He's
mhm,
basically a preacher of the woke religion or
Yeah.
the
yeah,
progressive religion, because that's all he does is speak into the mic, and he comments on everybody else and what they're doing wrong and what everybody else needs to do to fix it. Meanwhile, his life is in complete chaos. Why listen to him? His life
yeah,
is completely chaotic. It's out of order in every way, shape, and form. He's going to be completely miserable, maybe apart from the money he has. But you know what? There are some people in this world that are so poor, all they have is money.
yeah,
Well, I mean, to speak to that point, I think someone said it best. I don't know if it was on the whatever podcast. It was something similar. It wasn't Destiny. It was a similar situation where a guy kind of shops his wife around. And the guy commented in and he was like, brother, I make 40K a year. And he was like, but just hearing you shop your wife around makes me feel richer than you. Like I could never
mm,
want
Hmm.
that for myself in my lifetime.
yeah,
And
yeah, I like
it
that.
again, it's just kind of like this vapidness, right? Of society stepped away from Christian values and now things kind of just don't make sense. They're nonsensical. And you do kind of feel bad a bit too with Destiny, where you feel like you see that his life has spiraled since his wife has left him, right? He's gotten more chaotic, had more crazy takes. It was really the one with Corey Compatore that really
Yeah,
kind of set me on fire, where he said it was like a good
Oh
thing that it
yeah.
happened, that he perished at that rally, and that he
said
wished
that.
it happened to more supporters. And it's just like, that encapsulates the fact that like what he really believes and feels is evil, right? And he's like this force of chaos.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I just wanted to give a shout out to Earl's daughter. Happy birthday to your 18th there. Your 18-year-old, I mean, not your 18th. Your 18-year-old. That's pretty cool. Appreciate you stopping in for a little bit.
Yeah, kick him out.
That's time to get a job and get married.
Yeah, I did my part.
Mhm.
See ya.
That's funny. I was thinking, when you mentioned that you had a family member that had like 60 presents or whatever for Christmas, my dad did, he tried really hard to make sure we had everything we wanted for Christmas and stuff like that. But I don't think I ever got 60 things. If I ever did, it was like a bucket of green army men or something like that. And then that was the 60 things, But
Well, it felt different back then. Like Christmas, it felt so different because I remember being a lot more grateful for the things that I got, or like it's kind of hard
yeah,
to explain because maybe it's the exposure that kids have nowadays to see what everybody else has.
yeah,
Like my wife's taking my son to a birthday party for one of our friends, and I mean they just have like a lot of stuff, and I mean good for them, but when we do Christmas here, I'll get my son like basic shit. I'll get him like gloves, and
yeah.
I mean
Yeah.
because
Useful
in all
stuff.
Yeah, what's funny you say
things
that? Like
things that he
my
can
favorite
use.
gift was my baseball glove. You get a new bat every once in a
Hmm.
while. My baseball glove. All my buddies, they all kind of have their own. They all had their own glove and their own bat, and we spent our days playing baseball. I think I mentioned this on the last stream, but I mean, I grew up in the '90s. I'm in my 40s, and you know, we didn't have the cell phones, we didn't have the pagers or anything like that. So it'd be like, all right, where you want to meet tomorrow? We'd meet at the baseball field at whatever o'clock in the morning. We'd survive all day off of a Gatorade and people's like it's a cliche, but we'd go over to the apartments of the townhomes next to the ball fields and drink out of their hoses. It's just
I
it was a
bet.
different time, but I mean, I feel like we really got to enjoy life because we were out there actually experiencing each other. And I'm still
Hmm.
actually friends with a lot of those guys now, even today, where I feel like if you're making friends on a video game and stuff like that, you never even know the person's face. And then as soon as you're done playing the game or they are or whatever, then that all just kind of ends. So, I mean, it's, I'm just saying, like, my favorite, I still have my baseball glove that my dad bought me my freshman year of high school. And, I cherished that type of stuff. We took care of, to your point, we took care of our stuff. I remember we didn't like letting other people use our baseball bats, because they'd drop it on the ground too hard or just they'd get
Hmm.
a mark on it or just whatever, just using it normal. Just funny stuff, man. But nowadays they kind of just run through stuff. And it's to your point there where I like your point that you made where it's like they got access to everything on a tablet to see everything on a tablet and stuff. And so it's kind of just, it's a whole new ball game. We can't go back to the old days, but
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm 28, so I'm not sure how old Patriot is. I put you on a blast here.
33.
But so I was kind of like in the intermediate
okay.
period where growing up, yeah, growing up, it was like around like 12, 13 is when like the phone started becoming like a real thing. And so like every kid had it. So like, pre that era, it was like all my gifts are kind of like physical. Like if I wanted to do something with my toy, I'd have to like actually like go and literally play with it. And then it was around like 16 or 17 when, Blackberries are a thing and now we're moving to touch screens. Everybody like that was like the gift. Like people wanted a phone, they wanted like the connection, they wanted like, MySpace, everything kind of transferred to like that digital marketplace. And that's where I feel like a lot of changes occurred. It kind of started like changing the structure of how people kind of viewed fun and activities and things of that nature. And so I just remember it's like the old days, right? Like pre-internet almost. And it's like I barely lived through it. I wish I could go back.
Dude, I
Yeah.
remember so the house I bought actually, I grew up right down the road from it.
Oh,
And
cool.
so when I was a kid, I would actually come to this house, but I would actually strap a computer on my back because we had our own computers, but in order to play with each other, it was like you had to do a LAN setup, right? So
Yeah.
I would literally bring my computer. He had an extra monitor here, so we didn't have to worry about that thing. But I would ride a couple miles on my bicycle with the computer and all the cords and the whole setup back and forth, so that way we could set it up. We'd skateboard and do all that other fun stuff. But uh even video games back then, they were different because you were playing in person. Like I remember actually setting up these games and playing side by side with my friends, as
Yeah.
opposed
Yep.
to now you put on headphones, you're isolated in a room, you're talking over a microphone or whatever, but it's not the same thing. You don't get that same kind of bond when you're setting it all up together, figuring it out, and then once you get bored of this shit, then you go out and you do something else.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's just it's so different nowadays, and especially with the video games, they're being designed like slot machines for children. They want to
Yeah.
keep them as engaged for as long as possible. They're not telling these amazing stories. I mean, do you remember, I don't know if you guys played a lot of video games back then, but I believe it was,
Yeah.
what is that game called? Metal Gear Solid 2, I think it was.
Okay.
Yep.
There's I remember playing through that game, and the story ending, I mean, you can watch it today and you'll be blown away by the end, because basically the entire premise was he was getting it's like this military guy. He's getting directives from who he thought was a general. Basically, they made him feel special, and he goes and he does all these missions. And at the end, it reveals that these two people were actually just AI. And so he has a conversation with the AI and how the AI is going to take over the world and how they're going to control truth. Like, you listen to it today, and you're like, holy shit! Like, this is this actually happening? Like, and that came out in like
Look that up.
2002. I mean, yeah, I would highly recommend it, because it's actually amazing. But it stuck in my head for a long time. But there were actually stories to be played back then, and now
Right.
you hop into video games and they're like, what's that new Dragon Age game? It's like Dragon
Oh
Age
yeah.
Veilguard, something like that, where
Yep.
the character design has like the breast scars, where they remove
Yeah, the
breast
surgery
scars.
scars.
Yeah,
Oh, goodness.
they're implanting. I mean, I watched a compilation of all of the woke nonsense that's in that, and it is just like, it's not telling a story. It's shoving this ideology down people's throats. They're not telling these archetypal stories, the hero's journey. They don't do that anymore, because they don't understand that worldview. They weren't raised in a way where they cherish these archetypal stories, and they don't have
Right.
that value to seek. They don't see that higher power that they're trying to seek. So instead, what they do is their God, their religion, is their ideology, and they have to spread the gospel and put it in anything and everything. So all these
Mhm.
activists, it is just, I say this all the time, that every human is inherently religious, unless you're a psychopath. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter if you're a Christian. It's just Christians have a defined God. We have our defined heaven and hell. Christ and Satan.
Yeah.
But everybody has that belief system of good and evil, right? If you believe that some actions are better than others, then you believe that there is a logical conclusion to both of those. And if you have your God as being undefined, if your God is, the highest ideal is completely undefined, you will lean towards something like the woke religion, right? You can say you're an atheist or whatever, but
Mhm.
you're still a religious person if you believe in good
Yep.
and evil.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
No.
definitely. Oh, you're good. I just wanted to say, it's a socks at split screen 007. Yeah, that was great. I remember hanging out with all my buddies. We'd set up multiple TVs. We'd get down on that thing, man. GoldenEye. Yeah,
Yep.
that was the good days.
Then like
Is that
Smash Bros as
N64?
well.
Oh, Smash
Yeah.
Brothers. I still
Yeah.
have that on the N64. Me
Yeah,
and my
it's still
son will
good.
play it all the time.
I think they have it for the new Nintendo thing. I have one. I can't the Switch. Is that what it's called?
I think so.
Nintendo
Yeah, it's called
Switch.
Ultimate now, I believe.
I don't play it, but I don't play it that often. But I bought it because I wanted to. I got nostalgic one day, and the kid across the street wanted to buy a new fishing pole. And he's like, "You want to buy my Switch?" I was like, "I'll buy it." Gave him like 100 something for it or something. And I was like, "I want to go play me some Mario Kart," and it's too difficult nowadays. He says, "Give me the I gotta plug in the old Nintendo and just play the regular old Mario Kart if I want to play it."
Dude, but those are actually hard games, man. My wife bought this she bought this like Game Boy off of TikTok, and it's got
Yeah.
like 16,000 games on it. It's insane.
Oh wow.
But
Dang.
But any game you can think of from your childhood, it's got it on there. And I looked up the Lion King game, and I don't know if you remember playing the Lion King. It's like on the Genesis, the Sega or something. I don't remember what platform it was on, but I remember
Vaguely
playing it
do.
as a kid. And I tried to play through dude, I couldn't get through the first level. That shit was hard. It was difficult. And of course, like once you get through the level, if you die, then you start the whole game starts over. And I was like, how the heck did I do this as a kid? It's like,
Bro,
Yeah.
I remember playing like Donkey Kong Country. I think that was one of those ones you had to just like pause it overnight and go to bed and wake up the next morning and play from the same spot. Like there wasn't the
Mhm.
save, none of that stuff.
Well, it's no surprise when like what was it called? Elden Ring released like a couple years ago, and people just flocked to it because it's so different. It's like the Dark Souls, right? There's no difficulty setting. It's like if you want to beat it, you literally have to beat it. You got to figure out a way to do it, and people
Yeah.
really flocked to it, man. And so there's a lot of people who got angry. Like there should be a difficulty slider because they're so used to it, and I think that's the reason why you see. And you must maybe esoteric, but like they added like bots in like Fortnite, right? And they added bots into Fortnite because they wanted people to have a sense of like they're doing well, even though they're just fighting computer things that have like no
Mm.
difficulty to them. And so a lot of games to a lot of people have turned into like that sense of winning, even when it's like undeserved. They just like the dopamine effect of like, oh, I did good, even though you really weren't competitive by any means.
Yeah.
You know. Well, that's why I recommend you get your kids into sports, particularly wrestling. There's a couple
Yep.
things about wrestling. It's that one-on-one sport where you either get all the glory for winning or you have to have the internal structure, the struggle for losing. Because you can't really blame anybody. You can try to blame the ref sometimes or whatever, but it all comes down on you. But you play other team sports, like if you play baseball growing up, you always got the kid that plays right field. The kid that plays right field, which bats ninth or 15th because he usually bat the whole team or whatever. And that kid can mess it up. You can go 3 for 3 or 4 for 4, but if that kid messes up every time, then you can still lose. But if you're in wrestling, not only does it teach you a self-defense skill, keeps you in shape, it also wears your kids out. So if you want them to go to bed when they come home, they're pretty wore
Yeah.
out after wrestling practice and stuff like that. But it also, the main thing is, and I actually try to use this as often as I can, is that the participation trophy generation versus the kids that learn the struggles of winning and losing in a one-on-one type of sport. There's just huge differences between people. I've heard it said by a couple people that if I have found out that, like on a job application, if I found out you're a wrestler, you're gonna have a higher probability to get hired with me. Just particular people talking about it because you have that self-discipline. You can handle taking a loss. You can handle handle winning as well. And that's a problem that the left has is they're this generations of people that have received participation trophies. They don't take scored or in games. And when it comes to losing an election, we saw it in 2016. They couldn't handle it. You know what I mean? All the way up to the top levels. I mean, Hillary Clinton did the whole Russia investigation. All the people that were on that side, they couldn't handle it. They supported the Russia investigation. They they all were denying that Trump won.
They
And
fabricated it.
right.
They
And so they're
completely
just
fabricated it to smear Trump. So it wasn't just a form of support. I mean, this was an evil plot. An evil. It sounds like cartoonish by saying evil, but no, this was actually an evil plot by a lot of very powerful people to try and take Trump down, and it failed because it was fabricated. And they obviously can't tie up every single loose end everywhere. And if this was 20, 30 years ago, before the advent of social media, then they probably would have gotten away with it. And especially now that we have X, a platform where we can actually, now I know that it's not like 100% free speech, but it's like,
Yeah.
what do you guys want? We're allowed to
Well, yeah,
say
better.
truthful things now. That's the most important part.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
we
Truthful,
have to
good
be able to
ideas.
say, yeah, biologically truthful things. And before, back in 2020, I mean, these social media companies were getting to the point where we weren't even allowed to say men aren't women, though.
Yeah.
You weren't
Yeah.
allowed to say that on Twitter before Elon bought it. You
Yeah.
couldn't say that men aren't women. That
Yeah,
that
hate
was
speech.
insulting.
Right.
Ugh.
It was insane. Yeah, I really enjoy X now, and it's pretty cool how Elon Musk is basically going to copy with the government via Doge what he did with X as it came through, and he gutted down to like 20-25% of the workforce, and then over the next couple of years, he built it back much better. And when he implemented uh, uh, community notes, it really added validity to what people were saying, and I like it. I like how you're allowed to say whatever, and the good ideas rise to the top, and the bad ideas fall, and they're shunned from society rather than just trying to block bad speak or whatever. And then instantly, if you come out and you try to say something's factual and it's not, you get community noted. So it actually has become a pretty trustworthy, one of the most trustworthy social media apps, I guess you'd call it, places, the town square essentially, that we have out there.
Well, yeah,
But
to
the
your
media
point
tells
of,
me it's filled with white supremacists.
I know,
yeah,
right?
right.
That's
no,
good. That speaks to how these Democrats and the media, they don't understand how to lose. They're not graceful in losing. And then we saw when Joe Biden won in 2020, they don't even know how to win. They're the worst type of losers. They're the worst type of winners, and it's just sad.
Well, no, I wanted to speak to
They're
like the influence, right? So you brought up how,
Mm.
we were going down a really dark path with our X, right? Every kind of social media conglomerate was saying like, we're going to enforce all these insane rules. Elon buys X. It kind of changes the landscape. And a recent example was the DEA nomination that Trump made like a week ago at this point. It comes out that this is the guy who actually arrested a pastor during the COVID lockdowns. And people were like on X, they're like, nah, we're not doing this. And then it was
Yeah,
like 2 days later, he withdraws his nomination, right? He's gone. We're going to be looking at somebody else. And so it's a powerful tool, and I'm glad we have it.
yeah,
Yeah, that's true power to the people right there. Is they go back and they see, oh, wait a minute, this guy was part of the Gestapo, the who were just following orders back in 2020. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, this gives the people a voice. And I mean, shoot, I'm from a town of 2,500 people, man. I didn't have any kind of social media presence apart. Like I had a Facebook for a couple years, but I didn't really, I wasn't like politically active in any way, shape, or form. But once I saw Elon buying X, I was like, "Pfft, I guess I'll hop on there and see what I can do. And it turned out that, I guess a lot of people like what I say. But
yeah, man.
I, I,
And
I
good
have
for
I
him.
have more of a voice now than I ever had before because I resisted all the 2020 lockdown shit but
Yeah,
nobody cared. Why would they?
yeah,
I
exactly.
my boss handed me that slip saying that, hey, put this in your truck just in case you get pulled over. It says that you're an essential worker and you're allowed to be out. I was like, fuck that. Hell no. I'm not doing this. This is America. If they
Yeah.
decide to arrest me because I'm out on the road, then I'll
Right.
fight them in court and then I'll win
Yeah,
because that's illegal. It's that simple. But there
exactly.
there weren't enough people that had that mindset. And so I realized at that point in time, like, okay, maybe uh there's not enough people actually speaking out against this because I mean you saw some resistance, but it wasn't a movement. And
It
there were a
wasn't
lot of
enough to
men that
embolden people.
yeah, there were a lot of men that I respected highly that bent the knee to this because they just thought it was the right thing to do. And I was and mm-mm. So I decided to start speaking out then. And
Yeah,
thank God for X. I got
yeah, man.
162,000 followers now, which just blows my mind all the time. But
Yeah, that's amazing. That's pretty cool. I'm thankful for you to, for coming on the show too. That's really
Yeah.
awesome. I think I got like 5,000 people on next, which, I'm not saying that's nothing, but I appreciate you taking some time for the little guys too.
Yeah.
And by the
hey
way,
man, I was
um
there not that long ago. So
right. And then, as we grow together, like that's one of the things, we have a guy in chat, Chris Stockham. He actually just the most recent. He has a little channel as well, and he's been growing, and he uh we try to share, our audience, our time, try to help each other out. He's been on the show before. He'll be on the show again soon, I'm sure. And we have a lot of ex-veterans and stuff like that that come and watch, and we just try to basically help each other out. And so I think it's really cool that you're on here and doing this for us as well.
well, man, this
Yeah.
this is what it's all about. I mean,
Yeah,
I started that tribe of patriots, right? I mean, with being Native American, I have a certain branding and everything, but the tribe of patriots, I believe it's I mean, we need to have a community that is able to help each other out. And I never want to become one of those people like I dog on the Daily Wire all the time. For some reason, they just became like my punching bag for this. But they started out with millions and millions of dollars in advertisement money, and they
Mhm.
always, I remember them always saying like we're the fastest growing conservative podcast network in the country. And
Yeah.
they would say that constantly, but they're so disconnected from the everyday man. Like I feel blessed because I've been
Yeah.
working outside, behind the scenes all of my life, and I feel like I would like to stay that way to some certain extent. Like I don't feel special in any kind of way that I have 162,000 followers. I mean, that's really, really cool. But like
Mhm.
I enjoy like all the gas stations that I stop at. I go in and I talk to all of them, and I enjoy, like I get to know their names, and I try my best to just be friendly. And so like with something like the Tribe of Patriots that one day I hope will be like a legit thing. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but
Yeah.
uh,
Was that like you got like a
a
website for that?
community.
Is that like a
No, not yet.
website or anything? Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, I'll put the link to that in the description. I will actually. I should have done it already. I should have put the link to your X in the description so people can follow you. Let me actually.
Yeah, it's in mine if people want to follow it. I put it in my description.
Okay. Yeah. I just totally. I meant to do it, but I was scrambling the last hour today. I try to put out 2 videos per day, and then we're doing the live show. Well, it's been 2 days a week, but this week we're actually adding Mondays into it, so it's gonna be 3 days a week now. And
There you go.
I was scrambling. I actually had a meeting I had to get into, and that threw me off like 40 minutes for my timing today. But yeah, I definitely want people to go over and follow you on X.
Yeah, but I mean, this is the kind of things that I love, and I don't want to be so disconnected from the average person. Like even if I make it, even if I end up making like a ton of money from doing this, I'm not going to be buying a mansion way out in the hills to hide from society. It's like I actually enjoy a good community. I enjoy meeting patriots, meeting people from, because I mean, there's so many people who have really, really fascinating stories. Like I'll talk to truck drivers all the time. I'll talk to just various people that I come in contact with, because I mean, my job, I'm isolated by myself. The overwhelming majority of the time, I'm just out working by myself. So when
Yeah,
I do get the opportunity to go talk to someone, you know, I really enjoy listening to their story, and people tell you crazy things when you ask them. And I just think that if I can help inspire people to get their lives together and to be good citizens, good patriotic, God-fearing citizens, where they get married, they have kids, if enough of us do that, all of a sudden our country would start to look a lot better.
yeah,
No,
yeah. I agree.
agreed.
If people took more interest in other people's lives and actually turned their uh, what's the excuse me, what's the old phrase about it takes a community to raise a kid or whatever, it takes it takes
Takes a village.
everybody.
Village.
Village, yeah, it takes a village to raise a child or whatever, and it doesn't stop whenever you're a kid. You know what I mean? You make
Hmm.
neighbors, you make friends, and you become people's therapy. You know what I'm saying? Essentially, like you stopping and listening
Yeah.
to somebody, ask them how they're doing, telling them. I mean, even if it's as simple as being like, "Hey, man, I like that hat when you're walking through the store," or "I like that shirt." It makes people feel good. Sometimes people would say that to me. I used to have this Hyperion shirt from the Borderlands games, and people would stop me and be like, "Oh, bro, that's awesome." Uh, I love Hyperion. I love Borderlands. Like people don't even know what that shirt is or whatever, and it's what it makes you feel good just for a few minutes, and it makes your day worthwhile. And you, like I said, you kind of become people's therapy. They end up not needing to go, pay the big pharma elitist essentially for drugs and doctor's appointments and stuff when you're just actually have a generally friendly society.
Gives you a sense of community. It gives you, I mean, there's brotherhood in that too. When you actually have a community, that and you get that sense, then it's something worth protecting as well. Then you start to have skin in the game, and you're not just like, I work in the Tacoma, Washington area a lot, and there's so many damn homeless people there now, where I feel so disconnected, and I feel like there's nothing I can do to help there.
Hmm.
That's what it feels like. I don't I'm not going to stop and pull over and help somebody on the side of the road for the most part. You know, if they're slumped over in a weird way, like I'm not helping them. I don't know what's
Yeah.
going on with them, but it's probably not good. But I mean, if that was the case, then I'd be pulling over all the time because of these homeless people in Washington State. I mean, they're always on drugs, and the police do the same thing. They just drive right on by. But it's not a community that I feel a part of. I just work there, and so it's like there's an isolationist part in that. And now in my hometown, I feel a sense of community there around my neighborhood. You know, I know all my neighbors and talk with
Yeah.
them fairly frequently. You know, not every day, but
And
it nowadays they want everybody to be isolated and not have that sense of community, and then not have a family and not feel like you're part of something bigger. Like
yeah.
that's one thing that I really really enjoy about this country, and why I use my Native American side to kind of give an example of it, because back in the day, you could become part of a tribe without being blood related to anybody. If you did an act or something great for the tribe, you could become a fully fledged tribe member. That's what America's supposed to be. America's supposed to be this place where it doesn't matter your skin color, it doesn't matter your
Mhm.
background. If you are an American citizen, then that unites all of us. We're all connected. But there's been that Marxist communist attack on not just the nuclear family, but the American identity as a whole, where they're raising these children to hate this country. And
Yeah.
man, I just can't stand it. So I'm constantly covered in flags. That's why, you know, I make headdresses. You know, it'll piss some Native Americans off, and it's like, you know, I kind of get it. It can be seen as disrespectful, but
Mhm.
they're not real eagle feathers. I mean, that's a representation of a headdress. It's not a
Yeah.
real one made with eagle feathers that I got. You're like my great grandfather got here. You know,
Yeah.
it's not like that. It's just I'm bringing back imagery and the representation, and I'm overtly patriotic because I believe that this is the greatest country on God's green earth, and that we have to save it. We have to bring that culture back where we all share that bond, that American identity, that hey, we're all brothers and sisters here, and we can literally do anything if we have that in mind. But we're losing it, man. It scares the shit out of me.
Well, it's
I
one
Right.
of
could
those
rant
like
about this
downstream
shit
effects
forever.
of
I love it, man. It's true.
I was just gonna say it's one of those downstream effects of all the immigration we've been under. And you know, you see kind of like the developments of that where the communities are atomized. You know, you go to a certain neighborhood and it's like, well, that's where, you know, little Somalia is at, you know, this is where little Vietnam is at. And
Oh
they
yeah.
kind of have pushed away from the assimilation aspect. And that's why we have all these kind of like broken kind of voting blocks where people aren't voting in line with American values. They came here, but they're like, we want to repeat what we just escaped from, whether it was like socialism or was other some other form of oppression. And it's unfortunate because you see it, not only is it like being attacked to like against the nuclear family, you see children being taught to hate their parents, right? We saw a lot of this stuff even with like January 6th, where kids were turning in their fathers and mothers for like being involved in stuff like that. So there's some kind of like broken authority there where kids don't
Oh
respect their
yeah.
parents at all. They respect like what their school teachers say over what their dad or mom has to say. And so there's so many things that are backwards. It's like it's going to be a long fight to get the culture back to where it needs to be.
And the
Yeah.
solution, as far as like, I guess it depends on where you're at, but one of the things that I push is actually not homeschooling your kids. Now, obviously, if you can, if you have the capability, if you're in a bad area, then you should. But we actually have to take these institutions. What you need to do is you need to, for one, be a good parent and be in your child's life, meaning know their teachers, know what's going on. Don't give them a cell phone with unlimited access to internet. That is insane
Yep.
for little kids to have. I mean, any age under 16 shouldn't have unlimited access to the internet nowadays, because it is not the same as when we were kids growing up. And
Yeah.
you shouldn't have that. Like my son, when he gets a phone, it's going to be a flip phone with no internet access. It's going to be like this
Yeah.
basic: send a text, send a call, that's it. You got a phone, congratulations. But
Right.
it won't be this smart device that everybody feels that they need to that children need to have.
It's loaded.
Um,
Yeah.
oh yeah, what was it? I had a point with that. I think I
Oh,
got distracted with the whole cell phone thing.
no, you're
But
good.
Gotta give him a Nokia.
it was reclaiming our institutions. So what you need
Yeah.
to do with your children is to arm them with the knowledge to counteract when authority figures try and indoctrinate them. Like my son knew at a very young age what a man and what a woman was, not
Yeah.
because I went into all this crazy sex bullshit that they want kids to learn now. No, because we
Mhm.
had chickens and a rooster, and I was able to explain to him, the rooster, he's the king of the roost. And well, I appreciate that, Robert. Um, I don't know if I'm the hardest working man, but I try not to slack off too much. Um, but with having chickens, it is fairly easy to explain that the rooster, he's the male. And you can't have too many of them because they'll fight. And obviously the hens are the ones that lay eggs. And
Mhm.
it doesn't matter what you do to a rooster. You can cut off its wattle. You can make it look smaller. You can dye all the feathers the same color as the hens. But guess what? It ain't never gonna lay an egg. It
Right.
won't do it. And
Right.
if you don't have and
And he'll never
another.
stop that aggressive tendency to like protect the flock.
Mhm.
I got a bunch of chickens myself, and a hawk lands up in the tree. It's uh the rooster that's making the specific sound that makes all the hens run and scatter under the bushes or into cover and stuff like that. And if you're observant of it, you can see the roles. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's the protector, and then there's the protected, and then it goes even further to like what you're saying, that he'll never lay an egg.
Yeah, and
So
even if you
true.
don't have a rooster, like one of the more interesting things about chickens is if you don't have a rooster at all, there will be a hen that steps up and she can actually grow a wattle and she can become more masculine and more rooster-like. She'll try to crow, but the problem is that she'll never be able to fertilize an egg. So
Yeah.
it's it doesn't matter that that hen plays the role of a rooster. You still know for a fact that, okay, you can't have more chickens if all you have is girl chickens, because none of
Mhm.
them are going to be fertilized. They'll lay a bunch of eggs. One will pretend to be a rooster, but you'll never get more chickens.
Right.
You actually have to have the male and female. You have to have the rooster and the hen in order to make more chickens. So he understood
Yep.
that at a very, very young age. Once you arm your children with knowledge such as this, then the indoctrination won't be as effective. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but we do have to regain these institutions, and we can't do it by running away and hiding and isolating ourselves into various corners of the pockets of our societies, because
Yeah.
that was the problem the first time. Is we just, as conservatives, as God-fearing people, as I guess patriots of this country, we assumed that our institutions would function because they've always functioned, right? They they will do their own thing. We're going to go over here and do our own thing. And then all of a sudden we look around and we see, holy shit, the world is going crazy. Why is it going crazy? Because we haven't been doing anything. We haven't been participating
Yeah.
in every part of this process. I mean, when you just send your kids off to school and you don't give you don't follow up with them, you don't ask them, you don't sit them at a table for dinner, around the dinner table, and say, hey, what'd you learn at school today? And
Yeah.
kids are pretty honest. And I
Yeah.
mean, I know that they're going to hide some things, but when you have that relationship, when there's a consistency in having a father and mother there, and you set up around the table for dinner, you say, what'd you learn at school today? And then your kid says something like, well, the teacher said something a little weird, said this and this and this. And then you go, okay, that is not good. And then you can go talk to the teacher, and be
Yeah.
involved in their lives, as opposed to just pretending that the government is going to have these institutions ready to make your child into like a great citizen. No, they don't learn shit at school. I didn't
Yeah.
learn. I
Right.
hardly learned anything at school, man. It's just
Yeah.
Well, it's unfortunate because I think a lot of that stems from the fact that, libertarian kind of value, not to attack libertarianism as a whole, but that kind of like leave me alone mentality, where
Mhm.
everybody thought like if you just leave me alone, we'll be okay. Well, what
Yeah.
that left was like a vacuum, right? So all the people who did want power and did want to influence things took over these institutions. And so, like it's what you had just said, everybody thought the institutions would just function. And it just doesn't work like that. There has to be some kind of like active force. Like you have to be involved in your community. You can't just expect to be at home and isolated with your own family, because as much as you don't want to care about politics, politics cares about you. And so
Yeah.
there's a certain level of like responsibility that you can't abdicate, because you got to ensure that like things are being upheld, not only just in your own home and household, but that your neighbors aren't doing crazy stuff, that your community's not doing crazy stuff. And then it just expands on and on.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
way you don't get blindsided one day by someone like Daniel Penny getting put in prison for just defending himself and others. And,
Right.
you know, karmically, Jordan Neely died, but there's no, I can't think of a good reason that we should be having this man put into prison for what he's doing. And there hasn't been really a good case, but so many people are shocked by this, or they're either disconnected to the point where they don't care, and they're like, oh yeah, liberal cities will be liberal cities. Oh, you do you. You know, you should have moved out. I kind of get what you deserve. And it's like, no. Like, that's why it's one of the reasons why I stay in Washington State. It's like somebody has to stay here and fight. I mean, for one, the Native Americans, like my people have lived here for a long time. We've been here for quite some time. Now y'all want to kick me out? All the white progressives want to kick me out? Fuck you. I'm not letting
Right.
you guys do that. You know, I'm
Right.
keeping my guns. I'm keeping my land, and I'm going to influence as much as I possibly can here and try to turn the tide. And, you know, to some extent, I understand that there is a potential that I will get targeted and persecuted in some way. I don't know how that way is going to be, but I'm trying to live my life in a way that even if they do, I'll be able to fight it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I like what you said there, because I've been an advocate the last couple of years of just homeschool your kids if you can. But I like how you worded that, because not everybody can homeschool their kids, and it does kind of isolate the kids. You want to make sure that they're a part of like a church community or playing sports or something like that, where they're able to associate with other kids their age, and you know, be taught essentially by people that aren't their parents. But I just like how you worded that, because, you know, I mean, know the parents, be involved. Don't just use the public school system as your babysitter or whatever, you know, and hold the people that are messing up accountable. And that's part of the boldness that we were talking about earlier when I mentioned like Thanksgiving, like wear your America stuff to Thanksgiving and challenge the people with the conversation, and you know, deflect their lies with truth or whatever. It's time to like be more bold and not just turn the other cheek, and actually tell people that they're wrong when they're wrong. I think that's kind of something that's been missing from society for a long time, is they're just like, oh, well, that's nice. That's your truth.
Well,
You know,
Christians were too tolerant.
you're a boy. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in our nature or whatever to be more tolerant like that or whatever. But it's like, you're a male, but you want to be a girl. I mean, that's okay. It's just whatever. It's like, whenever you don't tell somebody like, whoa, you're fucking up. What are you doing? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Then they don't get that like harsh reality, and then they end up in an echo chamber. I've seen it on Facebook where a person is like, you know, a rugged looking dude wearing a dress or whatever, and then the comments are full of, oh, you're pretty. You're so pretty. You're beautiful. It's like, you are not pretty. Like, what is wrong with all these people? And it's like the one person that's like willing to say, or not even willing, it's just the one person that's thinking differently, or all the people that are thinking differently aren't willing to actually say it. And it's just that time where it's just, so we got to be more bold. We got to be willing to step on some toes for just the sake of being right and protecting other people, because then those people end up turning into the ones that are advocating for, you know, gender surgeries and minors and stuff like that. And it's I say it all the time too, that the slippery slope always goes too far. No matter what it is, the slippery slope always goes too far. And we've seen it over and over again.
You get like that non-aggression principle, right?
Mhm.
People would hit you with, well, if they're not hurting anybody, why do you care about it? You know,
Yeah.
so it's like that's like the number one go-to argument for things like that when we're talking about sodomy at large, and then that kind of evolved into transgenderism. One of the funny things that I like to point out is that meme that shows like a Reddit post from like 20, or no, it's been like, man, it's been like 2009, maybe 2010, Obama era, where it showed like, things that'll happen if homosexual marriage is enshrined in law. And then it's like all four of these things are like these crazy events that you would have seen like there's no way that happens. But you look at it in 2024 and it's like almost every single one of these things happened, right? Like men thought they could be women. World War III is like one of the things that's listed on there. And all this stuff is downstream. I think we can kind of sit here with hindsight and go, slippery slope is definitely real, right? Once you kind of remove a very biological thing, right? And you say this very real biological thing actually is just like this made up thing. And you can pick and choose when you decide to like honor it. It causes kids to get confused, and it takes like kind of like a foundational belief out of like a stack that you need to have in order to be a normal functioning human being. Otherwise you get people kind of walk around with like delusional takes and they just can't make sense of what's going on around them.
Of course. Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember I believe it was, what shooter was it? It was one of the shooters, the transgender shooters. They had posted a video in regards to, it was basically like them slowly losing their mind. And she had said that she had been misgendered multiple times, and that she was so upset. She's like, why can't people see me? And that video, it wasn't a case that other people couldn't see her. It's that she literally couldn't see herself, because she was taught to believe that she was a man. She was taught to believe that she could become a man. And in all reality, we don't have that ability yet. And that slippery slope, I mean, the gay marriage was just a continuation of what they, removing God and from the nuclear family.
Mhm.
1962, the Supreme Court ruled to take God out of all government institutions, even though the United States is, I mean, all of our rights depend on the belief of a creator, and
Right.
understanding that the rights are not simply agreements by man, but rather inherent from our creator. That's the entire
Yeah.
basis of the United States of America and why it became the greatest country on God's green earth.
Yeah.
But with the gay marriage, the thing that really irritates me about it specifically is the fact that they bastardized the word marriage. It used
Yes.
to be two people, or it used to be a man and woman in a covenant under God,
Yes.
and that was what marriage was.
That was
And then
like
all
how
of
it was
this,
originally invented, like written as the definition in the Bible or whatever. It's like,
Right.
yeah, that's what it is. And I honestly, I wouldn't have had a problem, or like looking back, I don't see an issue with having like a union between two gay people that has equivalent tax benefits or recognition in the government's eyes, but it's
yes,
not marriage. Like,
yes,
go make a union, that's totally fine. The government can recognize it, but you don't have to bastardize the word marriage. Marriage is something, it meant something. And once you
Right.
destroy that and you change it from a man and a woman in a covenant under God to two people in love, all of a sudden the entire purpose of marriage is now destroyed. And now we don't know, and then it becomes a value system on what the benefits are in the government's eyes, and instead of devoting yourself, promising yourself and becoming one under God and building an entire legacy by having children and sticking together with that one person, instead of marriage meaning that, now it just means they get tax benefits, and if you get divorced, the woman gets half the stuff, or however the hell, the gay divorces work. It's just, it drives me absolutely insane. And then
Right.
people will try and say that like I'm homophobic or whatever, just by pointing that out. It's like, no, you guys are ruining specific words. That's why the Supreme Court Justice, I can't remember her name, Ketanji Brown, I believe,
Yep.
it's something like that.
Good talking
Yeah.
about Jack.
Yeah, she couldn't even define the word woman. That's why everything is becoming confusing, because nothing actually means anything anymore. They've destroyed everything.
Yeah.
Well, that alone should have disqualified her from being a Supreme Court justice. There's no way in my eyes that
Yeah.
you can get confirmed when you
For
can't
real.
define a very basic human principle. And now
Yeah.
this person's going to
Now
sit on
you're-
the highest court of the land and say, say something does gets brought to the Supreme Court regarding like Daniel Penny. Well, now this one has an equal say to someone like Clarence Thomas, and that's a travesty.
Right. And then
Mhm.
JB, he made a good point. They made divorcing your husband profitable. That they even went so far as to de-incentivize marriage, in so to speak, or whatever. And then I know
Yeah.
like some of the benefits, like for like a gay couple to be married, would be like, I've heard it said, having rights like in hospital as next of kin, um, to be able to speak for your loved one as their spouse. I guess
It's
like one
not a
of the
reason to destroy the
no,
institution
no,
of
no,
marriage.
no. I agree, but I was just adding. You said like
Yeah.
they get tax benefits and
Mhm.
healthcare benefits and some things like that for being like a union. And I know one of the big excuses, that because I've had these debates with those folks before, and they're like, well, um, when so and so was in the hospital, I couldn't make a decision for them, even though I'm the person that they want me to make the decision. They went to their family instead, and I need to be married to have that like authority or whatever. And it's like, okay, well, why do you have to call it marriage? I've always held that same standard that you just said, that the word marriage is specifically defined, and the destruction of the English language is a part of the leftist tactic. This attack on religion, attack on human society, essentially attack on the American way of life, is by changing the definition of words. They do it regularly. I mean,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
even try to
And
do it with that whole Latin X thing,
it's been
But things.
specifically targeting the nuclear family for a long time.
Mhm.
When Jay Brown here says that they made divorcing your husband profitable, that's true. But also, so they removed God from all government institutions back in 1962. In the 1980s, they enacted no fault divorce, which just meant
Mhm.
Yeah.
that like I when you look
One
back and you
person
watch
can
like 90s movies, and you see the way that they depict fathers, as it became like not only profitable but popular to leave your husband, and
Mhm.
to it, it was pushed in culture to leave your
Right.
husband, and then the husband's a dumb idiot who can't, like, we watched even Santa Claus. We had just watched that movie with Tim Allen, and the way that they depicted him, it's like he was just this fool. It's like he couldn't
Right.
he
Mhm.
couldn't handle just picking up the kids and like making them a simple meal. It's like, what the hell? What? Why is this guy so retarded?
Yeah.
But somehow in every movie back then, I mean, you look at Liar Liar, it was part of the comedy that they were like, not the best dads, right? And that's why,
Mhm.
that's why they were being left. But then all of a sudden, it shows they destroyed the institution of marriage. They took God out of marriage. They depicted the father as a bumbling idiot instead of the leader of his spouse, which the Bible says that the man isn't the head of his house. He's the head of his spouse specifically. So
Yeah.
without that role, without having that kind of it's not just a hierarchy, but it's defined roles in a marriage to make a proper family and to move forward and to make a proper society, then we get what we see today. And they've been attacking
Right.
every part of it, with culture, with our laws, with the destruction of what words mean. It's all been an attack to separate not not just us from God, but from what our duties as children of God are supposed to be. We are supposed to be here to be fruitful and multiply,
Mhm.
and to guide others in the way. And we don't have that mission anymore. We're not raising children nowadays to believe in something that powerful. There's no children now that are being raised in, okay, I shouldn't say that there's no children, but it's not the
Most.
norm anymore to raise children to not only be thankful that they're alive, but to be thankful for where they were born at and for what they can do, and instead of believing that they should live a life of serving a spouse. Like, even though
Mhm.
I'm the head of my wife, I serve my spouse. Like, we serve each other in different
Yeah.
Right.
ways. But
It's
I'm
not a
but
misogynistic recipe or
Yeah. You hate
scenario
women.
or whatever.
No, and even if it is a little bit, it's like, fine, too bad. That's the way it
Yeah.
is. I like I know that I'm not always going to be right, but if there's a decision to be made, I'm gonna make it. And you had brought this up earlier, about how passive men are, right? I learned this through my first marriage. I married, okay, right after high school. I was with my high school sweetheart. We got pregnant with my first boy, and then I married her. And 8 months after that, we separated. Like
Dang, you
it
just
was,
described me.
yeah, and it was because I didn't know how to stand up for myself. I didn't know how to say no and mean it, and I didn't realize that I was supposed to be the leader. So when I took that when I married her, it was just business as usual. We're doing this basically for the kid. Obviously I
Yeah.
loved her. She was a sweet woman, but I basically allowed everything to fall apart in the marriage until it was to the point where we split. And I didn't realize that until after we separated, and I could look back and go, okay, if I would have put my foot down here and said, we're not doing that, we're doing this. Because I had gotten pre-approved to get a house. We could have bought a house, but she's like, no, I want an apartment. And
Mm.
it ended up like straining our money. I didn't have my own. I was slowly going crazy because I was living in an apartment, and I like
Yeah.
living out in the woods and having my own space.
Yeah.
But it slowly got worse and worse to the point where all of a sudden, um, I wasn't living the life that I could stand even. And
Yeah.
and it fell on me. It was completely my fault. Like, I don't blame her for wanting to do those things. I blame myself for not guiding our family in the proper direction. That's on me. And so with my wife that I'm with now, I decided that I'm going to be the man that I'm supposed to be and guide this family in the way that I know is right in my heart. And I've since then, I mean, within the first 5 years of us being together, I doubled my income. I bought a house. Uh, she became a stay-at-home wife and mother, and our life has been significantly better just because, well, for one, she works with me in that way and trusts me, and respects my decisions, even though she
Mhm.
has plenty of input on what happens. But since I became that leader and I stepped into that role and she stepped into her role, our lives have gone. I mean, I'm living my best life right now,
Yeah.
and it's just these roles are defined for a reason. And when you throw them all away and just say nothing really matters, I can sleep with whoever I want with no consequences because I can go
Yeah.
kill my child tomorrow at Planned Parenthood for $30.
Mhm.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think you touched on a couple of things there. One of the first things I'll say is in regards to like, both, and I can speak for this too. I think all three of us, although my first didn't end in a marriage, we never got married. I think it speaks to just like the absolute lack of true male role models in society, stemming from like non-existent in culture as well, like men having no idea what to kind of even stylize themselves as, especially when it does come to being the head of the household. And then that leads to a secondary problem now too, where all of the younger men who do pay attention, they go, that guy got destroyed in his marriage, that guy got destroyed in his marriage. Like, why would I want to do that? Right? Like, why would I
Yeah.
even want to follow suit in that? And that's where you see things like with the Jeff Younger case. And I don't know how familiar you are with Jeff Younger and him losing his sons to the chemical castration
Oh
and
my
such.
gosh.
But that, and again, kind of to punch back on the Daily Wire, you kind of think of the leading conservative groups. Why is like not kind of attacking the family court situation one of the top priorities in the conservative movement, when we can all see what the downstream effects of that are, and
Mhm.
it's like, what, 90% of cases end in the female getting the child. It's like, if a male even wants to
Mm.
have the custody, it's like she's got to be on heroin, she's got to have like been arrested before. It's like, it's so
Yeah.
unequally balanced.
Yeah.
And you know that's why I kind of think, like, again, what you said earlier about the Daily Wire, there's like this kind of elitism. It's like, they're kind of detached from the average day man. It's like they speak pretty well, but a lot of these issues don't really speak to the average male's experience, especially for younger men too.
Yeah.
And you kind of get like very base level advice of like, just go get married. And I think that's
Yeah.
kind of
Matt Walsh.
irresponsible. It's got to be a bit more nuanced there, right? Like, men need to know what they're doing before they just go get married, right? There's a bit more of like,
Yeah.
a bit more
Why?
to it rather than just like stepping in and getting the preacher involved.
Well, to even be desirable, you gotta, at least in my opinion, you gotta have something to offer. So if
Right.
the young men don't have anything to offer, they're not really gonna attract a decent woman that's willing to be, play that role
Yeah.
that we're talking about.
Before you had
I
to
wanna
bring gold, silver, and a pig to the father and say, "Hey, I would like to
Yeah,
take your daughter." You know,
for real.
Yeah.
now
Yeah, with the dowry.
now there's
Yeah.
none of that. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple comments here. Abigail Shepard said there was a movement of feminists to divorce their husbands after Trump won the recent election for the sake of womanhood and women's rights. There's no sanctity to marriage anymore. And furthermore, there was a campaign going into the election of women secretly voting for Kamala Harris, and like pretending to their husbands, like faking and lying to their husbands that they were going to go and vote for Trump, that he was like some
Yeah.
like projecting that their
commercial is
husbands
mine.
were some like misogynist or whatever, which, you know, I'm going to be honest with you. I wouldn't be able to be married to a woman that was voting for Kamala Harris. Like that's something that my wife and I both agree on, that like we wouldn't be married if we didn't align ideologically, like politically, religious, like the whole thing. Like we just wouldn't. It's not worth the effort. We'll find somebody that would, and we've been married for 20 years, but I
Well,
have
not
another
only
one.
that, the audacity of the Kamala Harris campaign to even put that out there. It's like,
Right.
I know better than your husband. Listen to me. Don't listen to what's going on in your life and all of his concerns and all of your personal concerns. Now, fuck that. Listen to me
Yeah.
because I know better than your husband. That's the audacity, that entitlement from the Kamala Harris camp. Like that blows my mind. And especially if anybody, I don't even know if anybody listened to it or if anybody felt the same, if that resonated with a particular community. I'm not sure it really did. But in all reality, just the
Nobody
fact that
that
they put that
wasn't
out
voting
there.
for Trump already. Yeah. Nobody. It didn't resonate with anybody that wasn't voting for Kamala Harris already. I would, venture to say. JB says
Yeah.
breaking up the family by making both parents work too. Yeah, that's another element to it. They've, increased the cost of living and just how all that stuff goes along with it. There's so much to say about that. And then It's a Sock asked the question, in all seriousness, my wife is the breadwinner and I'm the homemaker. What are your thoughts on that? Honestly, my wife and I have had periods of our life where I was the breadwinner and then she was the breadwinner. And that's actually a transition that we went through where I was in construction. I was building people's houses. I was spending all day long driving an hour and a half to work, an hour and a half home, working in 100-degree temperature, Florida heat, with everything, with the humidity and all that, costing me $15 a day to just to survive away from the house. So that's like another almost hour's worth of work or whatever. And it just came to the point where she went and got her license to sell houses. And then we came to, like, we just understood, like, okay, well, if you sell a house, I would have to work 3 months to make what you make in selling a house. So let's change this up. So then we changed it up. I became the homemaker, but then that provided me this opportunity to start this business and what I'm doing right now. So, I mean, we don't have kids that live in the house. Our daughter is 26 years old and she's independent as can be. But, that's how a working marriage goes. It doesn't have to be, at least this is my opinion. You guys might think differently, but it doesn't have to be like always the man. It has to be like just, to me, it's a mutual agreement between the two, working together, to better each other's lives, and that's kind of why you get married, is you get better with your spouse. Life gets better with your spouse. But, I was the homemaker. I make most of the meals. We kind of got into a routine lately where she makes breakfast, I'll make dinner. So it's a team. We constantly, one thing about marriage is you constantly choose to be with each other. That's one of the big things that keeps a marriage strong and together. You commit to constantly choosing to choose the other person. But no, I don't have anything personally against like that type of scenario, because I do understand that there's situations where I couldn't go out there and be a realtor. It's just not like in my DNA. I'm a dude that's been working with my hands. I've been building houses. I've been driving heavy machinery. I've been installing carpet for 20 plus years. Like for me to switch into that realm would not be chasing a dream. It would be doing it 100% for the money. And so when we got into the scenario that we're in, it's like, now I get a chance to chase my dream, and hopefully this ends up turning me back into the breadwinner, to be honest with you. But a mutual team working as a team, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The roles can be reversed, and I think there's a lot of good dads that get to, raise their kids and, all that type of stuff, being a homemaker as well. It's probably just not
Yeah.
not like the typical norm that kind of,
Yeah, if I was to
historically.
add something to that, it would probably be mainly, yeah, if I'm talking to Sock directly, far be it from me to understand what your personal situation is.
Sure.
I guess if you try to like blanketly apply that, that probably isn't going to fly. I just think that there's kind of like naturally in tune biological tendencies for women that kind of like desire a specific rate. I think when it happens like later in marriage, how you describe Worrell, it's probably a lot different than like, starting
Yeah.
early and doing things like that when you're a lot younger. Um, so I think, it depends on age and how long you've been married and if it changes as well. But I think for most men, it's like kind of ingrained in them too that they want to be the bread maker, right? Like they kind of want to be just like how you said, you want to flip the roles again. You kind of want to be the person who can provide for your wife and give her the life or something so that she doesn't have to work. And
Right.
so I think for like blanket advice, it's probably more so it depends on the individual situation. But I think for most men, it probably is like, especially younger in this time period where, you got to make 500K, right, to even be like on this woman's in the dating list.
In the
It's
radar.
like,
Yeah, exactly.
right. It's probably better that you at least try to strive for being the bread maker.
But not only that, I mean, I know a lot of people who have completely separate bank accounts um,
Oh, yeah.
with being married, which to me, I literally don't understand that in any way, shape, or form.
Weird.
Like, yeah, all the money that we've ever made has gone into one bank account that we've shared the entire time. And it's not because well, for one, like I don't value money the way that I probably should, or at least if I wanted to be really rich, I probably could have been by now. I've had pretty good opportunities to make a lot more money. I've never taken them because I'm like, that's just not for me.
Mhm.
But uh, it would be difficult if her being the breadwinner was used as a cudgel for your ego in a certain way.
Mhm.
Right.
Um, and I could see how that could lead to the downfall of a marriage if, especially if it's incentivized and constantly put in your face, like, well, I make all the money, so I'm going to do this and this and this. And it's like, you know,
Yeah.
when a situation arises like this, in my mind, and granted, I've never been in that particular situation because we've intentionally set up our lives to where uh, I'm going to be the breadwinner, and you know,
Yeah.
she's a stay-at-home wife, and that's what she likes to do. But uh, in all seriousness, as you were saying, I would imagine that the best way to navigate that entire situation would be to just have the money go into one bank account and but have defined roles at your house. Like there, I don't see how long-term solutions it would be, and maybe people just function like this perfectly fine. I'm not sure, but uh, if you look out there and as far as like reasons for divorces and why women leave, like most divorces are started by women, and a lot of the
Yeah.
times it's if they're making more money and then they see that they have more value than the man. So
Yep.
it depends on what your family values, and I mean there's a lot of different things that go into this, but
Yeah.
it can be fine, um, but it can also lead to a bad situation and in a way emasculating you and her not taking you as seriously as she needs to for a successful long-term marriage. But maybe it's fine.
Yeah.
I
Well
don't know.
put.
There's a
Right.
lot that goes into that.
Yeah, and I was thinking there, I was brainstorming while you were saying that, and it's like the wife could potential or could be this is just potential scenario, but like say the wife could still be the breadwinner, but still be submissive to her husband when it comes to
Yes.
making important decisions and things like that. So I mean, um, I think that would probably be the way that's the way that my marriage has been set up pretty much. My wife will even admit that. But um, I think that would probably be um, one of the most important things about it, because you know it is hard just to pay the bills and stuff like that, and um, everybody has, you know, I have a friend who he married a girl that was doing big things, and it's not like he would ask her to stop doing these big things just for the sake of like him wanting to be the breadwinner or whatever. And it doesn't mean that she can't submit to his decisions at the same time. So it just kind of depends on the scenario that you're in whenever you guys met, and how all that stuff came together as well. So I don't
Yeah.
know.
And what your
There's a
goals
lot
are
of
moving forward.
factors. That's the main thing. Being on the same track, being on the same team, and then understanding that when it comes to like the big decisions, the man probably should, with you know the woman's the wife's perspective known, make that decision. You know, make the
Yeah,
make the
there's
big
nothing
decision.
wrong with having a strong woman by your side.
Mhm.
That's a huge benefit. And in all reality, money is just it's just money. So
Yeah,
Right.
as long as you live your life in a way that you know, your guys' roles are defined, and you're lifting each other up and not working to like compete with each other in a particular way, um, then I could, you know, it's just money. That's all it is.
yeah,
If I was even at a caveat, it would be, even before you get to that point, make sure you're not going to be with a woman who kind of values money to a level in which it would threaten your marriage.
yeah.
That's maybe
That's
like one of the things I'd add in, where, put
Mm.
in a bit more Christian value of like a woman who values like her soul more than she values like the materials that you can provide and things on that level.
right. Yeah, definitely.
Actually an interesting point as well, because you know, would she put her career over raising her kids because you make the most money? Like, what? How are you setting up your life? Are you setting up your life to rely on her income only? Because I mean, children need their mom in all
Yeah,
reality. And if
Yeah.
she's out working 70 hours a week as a lawyer, you know, it's like she's not going to have that family. And I know that some people do it, but as a whole on society, you know, blanket statement, it's not a good thing.
yeah,
Yeah. Right. Especially imperative like nowadays. Right. And, I think this extends to even a more kind of esoteric conversation. But when you look at kind of women as a whole across America and the damage that feminism has done to the average mindset, I think most men who are interested in marriage are going to have to do a bit of work of kind of getting that feminism out of her. Because, I think it's affected more than what we've realized. And so I think knowing that and moving forward with it, you're going to have to do a lot of, not an FBI background check, but you're going to have to do a lot of work to make sure that like you're not setting yourself up to be in a bad position. Because if
yeah.
you do have a woman who wants to chase a career rather than have kids, I mean, you could have very well just like lost time of your life that you could have been, searching with another person.
Yeah.
And especially when you see like the majority of the content that's on TikTok and on other social medias where it's like, I'm not even going to be with a man unless he makes six figures.
Right.
You got to
He's gonna
kind of
spend
make sure you avoid
$500
that.
on a first date type
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. Or if he takes me to Applebee's, I'm done, or something along those lines. Right. And so
Right.
Five
I
hundred
think there's a
dollars
lot
on
of
a
nuance
first
there.
date?
You ever seen those like man on the street interviews where like they'll ask a woman, should a guy spend on a first date with you? And these girls are like, oh, it's got to be $500 meal at this place, or I'm not even going to give him the time of day. And it's just like,
Skip.
y'all crazy. Y'all got spoiled by one person, or you just, I don't know what it
Yeah.
is, but that's
I feel
not
like
even,
those women aren't the most desirable though. I mean, maybe for
yeah,
like rich people who like just have an insane amount of money, but any woman that starts off with he has to spend this much amount, I was just like, nah.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
I'll
She's
take you
always
out for
going
a
to,
pic. I'll intentionally take you out for even if I made $1 billion a year, I'd take you out for a freaking picnic. Be like,
yeah,
yeah, I didn't spend that
right.
money. See you later.
Right. She's always
Exactly.
going to be looking out for the next guy that's going to spend the most on her or whatever. And to JB's point earlier, where he was saying that the government has kind of made it where they've incentivized like divorce. Just in my particular case, which is similar to you, I got uh, my high school love pregnant when we were young. We got married at 17. had the baby, and then she realized before we were 18, she realized that she could get a big tax, check from the IRS if we weren't married. So then I was divorced. and so, the government definitely incentivized that by putting that scenario in place. And so,
She's
she
like, "You're telling me I
chased
can get a kid, child support, and go find another man?"
and get a $9,000 whatever payout or $5,000 payout or whatever it is from the IRS at the end of the year. Yeah, I mean, so it's definitely one of those things where
It's
you
all
kind
the
of
wrong
want her to
incentives,
be,
man.
yeah, you kind of want her to be a little bit independent to where she's not so thirsty that she's just gonna dump you for once you have the first or second kid to go be a single mom for the tax benefits. But so if you're both struggling, might want to be more careful. But if you're like a straight up breadwinner, then making good money or whatever, that might not be the case. But
Yeah. I
yeah,
think it's spot on. And not having, and that's why I kind of bring up the whole family court thing. Like, we got to make sure there's incentives put back in place that doesn't allow for this to be a continual problem. That's why no fault divorce is one of the worst things that ever happened to this country. Not having to take your concerns in front of a court to get things annulled, and at least have some kind of actual substantiated reason.
Mhm.
He literally he beats me when no one's looking, right? Now it can be I'm working on myself,
I
and then
changed
the
my
marriage
mind.
is gone. Right.
Yeah,
And so,
Yeah,
these kind
that's
of
the
things just
craziest
bust it.
thing. I don't feel happy.
yeah,
There's a lot of reasons why you don't feel happy. It's not
and
like
the court.
it's not like, oof.
Yeah, and the court's not going to sit here and go, well, you did tell ordained minister or whatever in front of God through sickness and death or whatever. You know what I mean?
Through sickness and health,
sickness and health. Yeah,
ups and
not through
downs.
death. Yeah,
Can't go off your feelings like that.
it's like, so you actually made a vow in front of God and the courts that you would work through this. So f your feelings.
Yeah, so give me a better reason.
Right.
But but
Exactly.
no fault divorce. Yeah, that's a really good point. It's just an attack, and then they incentivize divorce by saying, "All right, women," and this is why women initiate. I think it's over 70% of all divorces are initiated by the woman.
Yep.
It's because they're going to get money, they're going to get all the benefits that they can get, and they get to go. They'll probably keep the house if they own one, and most of the time the men don't even fight back because it's like, fuck it, like that house.
Yeah.
I wanted to be in that house with you, so now I'm gonna go do something else. I don't even care about it at all because the material
100% agree.
things. It's just like it is what it is. Gonna go build a new life somewhere else. But yeah, they've incentivized, especially for women, as much as they can to leave your man. Plus, with like you said, the Instagram and all the shit going on social media, grass is always gonna look greener on the other side. So it's like
Mhm.
you gotta be really, really strong willed and have your goals defined and understand that there are gonna be ups and downs. And I like what Abigail said here. If you put God at the center of your marriage, everything works out. And in all reality, that's why they took it away. That's why they
Yeah.
destroyed the institution of marriage, is because they don't want families to be successful like this, which is just it. I mean, there's a demonic movement afoot, and it's been around for a long time, long before I was born. And I
Yes.
mean, this was they removed God from all government institutions before the civil rights uh even happened, because that was 1964. So they took
Yep.
God out in 1962, and the marriages between black people back then were way higher, way higher. And you can blame you like a lot of people will blame the civil rights movement in a particular way, saying that blacks had all of their businesses and all of this and that. But you look at the black Americans back then trying to become equal citizens in America, right? They were well dressed. A lot of them were well dressed. They had suits, they had ties, they were married, they had kids, they went to church, they did all of these very godly things. And then that all collapsed, not because they achieved equal rights under the law. It's because they took God out completely, and then people stopped it. I mean, it only took a couple generations. Now, I mean, where are the I just remember growing up that like every grandma depicted, every black grandma always was like super religious, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's not that way anymore. It is not
Right.
in any way, shape, or form. Nobody in the black community goes to church in the way that they used to. They don't value marriage. Now we have these ratchet women that are getting shoved in front of everybody's faces. You got Cardi B out there singing WAP, which is like the most disgusting thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
For
They have a
real.
community, instead of a community that values marriage, family, and God. Now they're valuing degeneracy, money, liquor, drugs, gangster shit. And it
Mhm.
is destroyed so many lives, and constantly does destroy. You look at Chicago, you look at all of these, Baltimore, all of these cities where they're godless. They have a shit ton of guns, even though they have all the gun laws,
Right.
and gang violence. They don't have a sense of community there apart from their gang. And it
Mhm.
doesn't matter if they're black or white. It is the entirety of that culture is now a destruction to the future generations of America, and it's shoved in front of our faces every single day. So yeah, a million different ways that they've been attacking the family. I do got to get going here, guys. I'm going to a birthday party with my wife for the
Yeah.
kids, and I'm already
Yep.
an hour late. But I really
Okay.
enjoyed talking to you guys. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
man,
appreciate you
definitely.
being on.
Yeah, appreciate you being on. We'll have to do it again sometime. We got each other's
Yeah.
contact information and stuff like that. So, you know, like I said, we're in the business of helping each other out and lifting each other up and stuff like that. And I think this was a great conversation. And we only got part of the way through the first topic. So when a conversation is able to flow like that, man, I think we had a good show. I think we had a good chemistry and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I
I feel
noticed.
honored that you sacrificed that birthday party to come on here. So thank you very much.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
It's a kid's birthday party, man.
Yeah.
I know exactly what's going. I know exactly what's going on. But yeah, I was like, hey, I'm gonna do this podcast, and then I'll head over afterwards. But yeah, it started an hour ago, so I know I should get going and get to it. But thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. I'm gonna share it out all over mine. If you guys can follow me over at Native Patriot on X. Also, the Patriots Prayer Network. We have a network started on Rumble, YouTube. The Patriots Pray on X is kind of the homepage of it. You can go to thepatriotsprayer.com. We got a I guess, yeah, we got that website we're working on it right now, but we actually have a spot at CPAC too, upcoming in February. So we are taking over.
That's awesome.
We got a media table next to Fox News and all the other big folks. I have no idea how we did. Like, it's just, we know people, and they set us up with a table. So it's like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome, though.
I'm
Dude,
gonna be
that's
in
awesome.
Washington D.C. as a redskin redneck. Maybe I'll wear all my,
I love it. I love when you
Yeah,
post all the pictures on X with your machine guns and your American flag stuff and everything.
Oh yeah,
man, that
man.
gets me hyped. I love that stuff. That's
The
kind of
funny
how we
shit
first started
is,
talking to each other.
hell yeah. The funny shit is like, I used to do that shit all the time, and then my wife just took a couple pictures one day, and then like with X, I just started posting them, and I was like, I've done this shit for years. I mean, one of the first things I said, when I met my wife was, I have to warn you, I'm very patriotic. And maybe she didn't realize at the time, but now she knows exactly, what I meant.
what
Yeah.
that
When I was
means.
saying, yeah, like I'm all about, it's not blind obedience to the government, but the idea of America itself. And that even though I'm a redskin, even though that my Native American ancestry, I'm a half breed though, right? I'm half white, half native. So, I'm the product of integration, assimilation, and desegregation, and exactly what America is supposed to stand for. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful to be here. And man, I'm looking forward to the future now that we're slowly starting to take over. But thank you
Yeah.
guys once again for having me on. I really appreciate
been
it.
a pleasure.
Awesome show.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
God bless you guys. Take care.
God
I
bless
gotta
you,
get
man.
out of here,
Take care.
though.
Go have fun, brother.
God bless, man. Take it easy.
See ya.
Yep. Later. Native Patriot, everybody. Man, what a great show. I love having a conversation with him. That was fantastic, man.
Yeah, that was awesome. I actually just realized I'm not following him yet on X, so I'm gonna go do that right now.
Yeah. So everybody, I did put his link in the description. Atlas Thugged link is in the description, and so is mine. I don't know. I didn't have anybody's links to their X on in my YouTube videos description. So make sure you go down there if you're on X, even if you don't use it. If you got an account, show a little love. Make sure you go and follow those 3 accounts for sure. Mine's at World. It's kind of weird. It's different from what I got on my YouTube and everything like that. Make sure you share this. I gotta say, we're at 983 viewers right now. So share this and just get us over 1,000 real quick, you know.
Yeah, spam.
I do actually, and to tell you the truth, I do try to follow everybody back over on X. If your account is in English and it's not full of a bunch of nonsense, I typically will follow you back. So make sure you do that. And then you can find me on YouTube. My channel on YouTube is America First TV. That's also the same over on Rumble. Man, I appreciate everybody for being here. I think we're just going to call it a show with that. We got plenty more to go through, but man, I think that was a nice place to end it. And so let everybody know where they can find you and everything, and get out of here.
Yeah, you can follow me at Atlas Thugged on YouTube. I'm also on X at Atlas_Thugged_. And I will let you know, I only follow the best, the very best. No, I'm just kidding. I generally follow back anybody if I recognize your name in the Discord.
You got to have a blue check. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to be verified, actually. You got to pay Elon money for me to like you. No, but I did want to say thanks everybody for being involved and asking questions and being here. It feels like we're actually growing and taking off, getting more involved, and at least getting bigger people to give us a look. Forgive me, I can't speak. But hopefully we can keep producing some of these interviews out for you guys and interact with some of maybe your favorite content creators, and maybe one day we can get a seat at CPAC. So we'll see what happens.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That'd be awesome. And then I wanted to remind people that we do have the Discord link in the description as well. That's slowly growing, but it's been great so far. We've been, everybody's been pretty active in there, and we're kind of getting to know who each other are and get in on the ground level, because whenever this show is huge, you'll be able to say that you were there in the beginning.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, we have a good time with everybody in the Discord. We actually jumped into a voice chat last night for probably a good hour, almost 30, 45 minutes, and got to meet some of you guys. And so anyways, with that, this has been episode 22 of the Jar Openers podcast. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you guys. Oh yeah, we're starting to show up on Mondays, so we'll be back on Monday, 6 p.m. Normally been Wednesday and Saturdays. We're going Mondays, Wednesdays, Saturdays now. So we'll come back on Monday. Be on the lookout for that. And man, yeah, I appreciate everything. Yeah. Well, the news is happening so fast that there's just plenty of content to cover, and plenty of when we wait 4 days between a Saturday and a Wednesday, it's like old stuff becomes old news already, even though I feel obligated to talk about it and cover it. So we maxed out, it looks like, at 990 viewers. That is a new record for the show. Thanks so much to the Native Patriot, his contribution to the show, and be willing to come on here and help us out, man. That's fantastic. With that, we'll see you guys on Monday.
Yeah. Peace out, everybody. Christ is King, and God bless.
Yeah, Christ is King.
Let's roll an Atlas Thug. We here to bring the truth. Jar open this podcast. We breaking through the fake news. They try to silence us, but we will be subdued. We're bearded alpha males here to save the youth. Spitting fire on the mic with the bass Christian takes. Exposing the lies, keeping the demons at bay. We ain't afraid to speak up. We won't be swayed. Jar open this podcast where the truth is laid. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thug. We're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. We ain't playing games, we're on a mission to awaken the masses with our intuition. Pulling out the corruption with no inhibition. Jar open this podcast, sparking a revolution. We're not afraid to stand tall in a world full of deceit. We're the voice of reason, bringing light to the street. Keeping it real, never missing a beat. Jar open this podcast where the truth meets the heat. Jar openers, cracking open the lies. We're rolling Atlas Thug, we're here to rise. Bearded alpha males saving the youth from the godless demons, spreading the truth. Jar open this podcast where the truth will never cease. Join us on the journey to bring back peace. We're rolling Atlas Thug, fearless in our release. Jar open this podcast where the lies will decrease.